Chair recognizes Delegate Orr for proposal 383. There is an amendment of the proposal. The line 28 will remove 100 million and replace it with 500 million. With that said, the delegate is recognized for a 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Sir Chair. I am Levi Orr from the great state of Idaho, and at this conference on national affairs, two main points have not been contested. One is that our oil reserves will run dry, and two, that our coal mines will be depleted. Now, the world needs an alternative source of energy, but our current systems cannot keep up with a world that demands 17,000 hours of terawatt energy each year. Our wind, our solar, our water, and our nuclear fission are not keeping up with the demands of the world's energy. The answer to making the world clean and sustainable and having a clean, reliable source of energy for the future is nuclear fusion. Now, nuclear fusion creates 10 times more energy than it requires to function. But you know what it also produces is zero nuclear waste. It produces a stable atom of helium and not a depleted uranium atom that is very radioactive. However, the Achilles heel of nuclear fusion is funding. Now, Stuart Prager, who's the head physicist at Princeton, suggests that nuclear fusion is underfunded by $75 million per year. Now, a grant can be made, and it will be easily funded to fund nuclear fusion by a 1% surtax on toilet paper. Now, the advantage of making a surtax on toilet paper is two-ply. Number one, thank you. Number one is that it is a commodity that will not be denied. If they want to boycott toilet paper because they don't want to pay the 1%, I invite them to go use the lovely leaves outside. And number two is that the average cost per person in America for toilet paper commodity 1% surtax will be 50 cents per consumer. But the advantages go beyond energy. This kind of proposal will inspire the next generation of scientists and engineers in America.
Thank you, author. With that, the floor is now open for technical and non-debatable questions. The chair recognizes Pollock, Weaver, Kraus, Tripathy, Sheehan, Crow, and Desai.
Thank you, Sir Chair. In your proposal, you say that Stephen Dean, the president of Human Power Associates, believes that when students in many courses that deal with consuming in reality, does he give any estimate of students?
Yes, in that article it talks about how if a lot of students and a lot of money were to pour into, we could actually have fusion technology within the next 10 years.
Thank you.
Has the delegate done the math that the number of toilet paper rolls bought per year will actually cover these $75 million, but the current number of nuclear plants are underfunded, not including the ones that are yet to be?
Yes, absolutely. The toilet paper industry is $16 billion per year. 0.01% of that is $163 million
Thank you,
per year.
Paris, New Mexico. Due to the extremely high amounts of power, are there any inherent risks of coal fusion?
Due to the major risks that it does pose, the scientists are being very, very careful, so no.
Thanks.
What is this national propaganda?
It's just spreading the word to make sure that scientists and engineers and students actually know that there is support for the program.
Molly Desai, Georgia delegation. Do any countries successfully practice nuclear fusion?
No.
Shane Their delegation, does your proposal take into account the recent nuclear waste found in Japan?
The proposal does not have to deal with nuclear waste. So no.
So Oklahoma, how much?
A terawatt, I don't have an exact specification.
Thank
but
you.
it's very large.
Are there further questions? The chair recognizes Sharif.
Thank you, Edward, main delegation. What elements will be required or materials will be required for nuclear?
Deuterium and technetium.
Thank you.
Thank you, author. With that, time for technical non-debatable questions has elapsed. The chair would like to remind the chamber to please keep both questions and answers brief. With that said, are there speakers who wish to speak against this proposal? The chair recognizes Lawrence. Delegate, your time has begun.
Sam Lawrence of the Republic of Texas. I reserve the right to give the time to my fellow delegate from New Jersey.
That's your right.
I'm against this proposal for a number of reasons. because there's no specific research group for nuclear fusion research and for energy producing. Right now, it would go towards weapons producing nuclear weapons and power. There would be no specific thing towards power. Also, there's an extreme amount of danger in nuclear fission. Because look at Chernobyl in Russia. There's a reason why other countries don't have this right now, because of the danger. I yield the remaining time to my fellow.
You've yielded 45 seconds.
Regarding the delegation, thank you, Sir Chair. I think we can all agree that the United States is in an economic recession right now. And economically, how do we get out of a recession? Expansionary fiscal policy. Expansionary fiscal policy is either 1, lowering taxes, or 2, increasing government spending. This proposal raises taxes, which is contractionary fiscal policy. And economists on both sides of the political spectrum can agree that implementing contractionary fiscal policy during an economic recession worsens the economy. I applaud the author's intent, but that being said, this should be implemented during an economic boom, not an economic recession, so unfortunately this should not be passed at the current time.
Thank you, delegates. The floor is in order for a prose speech now. The chair recognizes Razdan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm from Roswell, from the very Grand Canyon state of Arizona. I'd like to yield reserve the right to yield the rest of my time to
So reserve.
Thank you. I'm going to outline why I believe nuclear power is the future of our energy economy with the example of a nation that recently decided to forego nuclear funding. 10 years ago, Italy, whose electorate was spooked by the specter of nuclear accidents, which are extremely rare, by the way, banned nuclear power. The results were disastrous for the Italian economy. Today, the majority of their electricity needs are provided by France, a country with a strong nuclear program. France gets that money, industry, and those jobs, and Italy gets nothing. They get a trade deficit for the energy economy. If we want to increase our energy independence, we can't artificially enlarge our oil reserves or coal supplies beyond what they already are, but we can put our efforts into creating this power by starting this fund. Thank you.
I'm sorry, delegate, you were not yielded to.
I yield my time to John.
It won't be in order next time.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Sir Chair, across the Arizona delegation. I stand in support of this proposal mainly for one thing. In response to the previous delegates mentioning that Chernobyl, that happened because the boiling point of the water they were trying to actually defuse went up too high. It wasn't because of nuclear fission. The second thing is we're going to raise taxes. Well, I would rather raise taxes for the future of America's energy independence. I am sick and tired of importing oil from countries in the Middle East that are causing our American boys to die in their sands. So for this proposal, I definitely think we should research it, we should develop it, and yearn the power of nuclear fission.
Thank you, delegate. With that, we are now in order for a con speech. The chair would like to recognize Mkude.
Cameron McVeigh, the Republican of Texas. I reserve my right to yield the remainder of my time to the delegate from Michigan.
So reserved.
Okay. Fellow delegates, I applaud the intent of the proposal author. But the problem here is I cannot find how government action is necessary here. The proposal author continually talks about how there's a huge demand for this service and for this needing to be done. At a certain time when we actually reach or get close to this oil crisis, there's huge opportunity to have booming profits in order to continuously make more money, which currently we have investors, private investors, trying to go into the green economy, trying to build for that kind of technology in order to reap profits when we actually need it in the end. So government intervention isn't needed. But furthermore, the principle that government action that we should make within the economy, tax what won't affect and will not affect the economy, is fundamentally a flawed principle. Because I have to ask you the question, delegates, when does it stop? When does the idea of government control about what should be taxed, what shouldn't be taxed, and where should we reallocate that money within the economy is the same principle of why we have state-run capitalism and essentially a centrally run economy. And with that, I'd like to yield the remainder of my time to Philip.
You've yielded 20 seconds.
Speaker Don, Michigan delegation. I'm all in favor of nuclear fusion. I'm also all in favor of solar energy. But the Cylindra experiment by the government utterly failed. Ladies and gentlemen, the government cannot pick winners. The technology for nuclear fusion does not currently exist. We don't need to be the ones who invent it. We just need to use it once it comes about. I don't see why we need to spend the money and take the risk when we will simply be able to use the technology once it is invented elsewhere when they're willing to spend the money and take the risks. And with that, I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
Thank you, delegate. The chair will now recognize a final pro speaker. Leichinger.
Sam Leishman, California delegation. Thank you, Sir Chair. I reserve the right to yield the remainder of my time to the delegates.
So reserved.
Okay, thank you. First of all, America has a history of inventing things. And then once we invent it, we no longer produce it. That has to stop. We need to get ahead in the energy race. And first of all, just to make a few corrections to what some delegates said, Chernobyl's in Ukraine. It was a long time ago, so it no longer applies. And let me just mention about taxes. There were no facts mentioned, and never in our history have we seen taxes contribute to a problem. The government intervention has helped every time. This is an example of stimulus, and we are investing in our economy when we invest in nuclear fission. And every time we invest in our economy, we have seen a bipartisan effort. President Reagan, Bush, Clinton, now Obama, and FDR when we got us out of the Great Depression. This is something we need to do for our economy, and so we can, in the future, help ourselves in the energy race. And I yield my time to the delegate from Michigan.
You've yielded 30 seconds.
Ben Miles, Michigan delegation. The important thing to remember about nuclear fusion is that its potential is nearly limitless. We don't know. We have a very reasonable idea of what it knows. Look at the sun. That's the power that we could be able to harness. All the examples of Chernobyl and the dangers of nuclear power that we have right now is nuclear fission. Nuclear fission creates radioactive material that is damaging to the environment everywhere if it does get out. Nuclear fusion creates helium, which you're breathing right now. There is no danger to nuclear fusion, and the results that we could have once we successfully discover it could be limitless. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Delegate. We are now in order for the final con speech. The chair recognizes Weaver, and the chair also reminds the committee to be respectful of the speaker. That's your right.
Weaver, Mississippi. I do applaud the intendant's proposal. I actually volunteer at a wind power factory because I'm very big into alternative energy. However, if you look at line 24, this money is only going to be used for research. It's not actually going to be used for alternative energy. If we want energy here now so that we're not borrowing from other companies, why don't we try drilling offshore because we know oil works. Now, with that, I yield the remainder of my time.
You've yielded a minute.
Jenna Hollander, representing the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Thank you, Sir Chair. I have a problem with this proposal for one main reason. The only time nuclear fusion has ever been successful is on the sun. The only reason it works on the sun is because it's too hot to create on Earth. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Delegate. With that, time for confer debate has now elapsed, and the chair will recognize the author for a 2-minute summation speech, and will also remind the chamber to please be quiet.
All right, thank you, Sir Chair. I am once again Levi Orr from the great state of Idaho, and I appreciate all of the points that were brought up by the con for this bill, and I'd like to address those now. The first point that was brought up is that there's no specific group that is funding nuclear research now and are actually researching now, and that is false. There is the International there's the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, as well as programs at MIT and Princeton University. The second is that there is too much of a danger and we can have another Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island. However, a previous delegate brought up that this is a stable, contained reaction that is not going to produce any kind of nuclear waste, and even in the unlikely and very unfortunate event that there was an explosion, that would not be radioactive wasteland that we'd have to go make a movie about it with zombies. Furthermore, the third is that it's not very good to raise taxes. Once again, this is at very, very most 50 cents per person in the United States, and a commodity that they're going to buy anyway. They're not going to give up toilet paper. And the last time that the United States has used surtax and so forth, like on cigarettes, we started to have really, really good roads. I like our roads, and they would be funded through surtaxes on cigarettes. And the fourth is that government action isn't necessarily necessary because private companies will want to flow in and start funding nuclear fusion research. However, the nuclear fusion in the United States has fallen off the grid over the past 10 years. And the last time that happened was with NASA. When the space industry started to go down, private companies like SpaceX and Virgin Galactic started to take up the strain. However, that is not happening with nuclear fusion, so proposals like these need to be happening to make clean, sustainable energy for the future and for tomorrow. And next, the delegates talk about how it's too hot for the Earth and how it cannot be contained and how we don't have the technology now. These projects like ITER and MIT and Princeton are all using these technologies and the funding that they used to get to make this technology a new reality to power tomorrow. We have the technology, and all we need to do is continue research in order to make nuclear fusion a reality for tomorrow. This proposal is simply a stepping stone towards putting America back on top. And not only energy independence, but also science and technology. Something that was kind of scooted over is that this kind of proposal will inspire the next generation
Thank
of
you,
scientists
author.
and engineers. Thank you very
With
much.
that, it's time to rank this proposal.